In this episode of Spirit Outspoken, we sit down with Enneagram teacher Ashton Whitmoyer-Ober to explore one of the most fascinating and powerful tools for self understanding and personal growth. The Enneagram is an ancient personality framework that helps us identify the deeper motivations behind our behavior, not just what we do, but why we do it. Unlike many personality systems that focus primarily on traits, the Enneagram explores our core fears, desires, and coping patterns, offering insight into how we tend to show up when we're stressed and how we move toward growth and integration. Throughout the conversation, Ashton walks us through each of the 9 Enneagram types, helping listeners begin to recognize their own patterns, motivations, and blind spots. We also talk about how this framework can cultivate greater compassion for ourselves and others because it helps reveal the underlying fears and drivers shaping human behavior. Whether you're completely new to the Enneagram or already familiar with it, this episode offers a thoughtful introduction to a tool that can help you better understand yourself, your relationships, and the deeper motivations that shape how we move through the world. And with that, let's dive in. So, Ashton, we have both been huge fans of yours for a very long time and followed you on Instagram, and that's how we both found you.
For like years. I don't know if you know that. For years.
No, I didn't. So
Yes.
That's exciting. Thank you.
It was
Yes.
kind of a fangirl moment for us when we were like, oh my God, Enneagram Ashton just followed us. Yeah, it was a really cool full circle moment.
That's cool. Yeah.
But we just love the work you do. And I had the privilege of taking the Enneagram when I went to a Christian women's retreat years ago.
Mhm.
And I loved the Enneagram because it just provided so much more depth. I love how it not only tells us about, maybe our personality, but our core fears, where we go when we're stressed versus where we go when we're healthy. And I had never seen a personality type test before that had shown that. And all of a sudden it's like things started clicking and I understood myself so much better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because honestly, you can read through some of the descriptions and go, well, I see myself there sometimes, and oh, I can see myself there sometimes. So the way it breaks it down and the way it structures it, I just think is really helpful and such an incredible, useful tool for people who haven't utilized it before in really understanding and having compassion for ourselves and other people as well.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us a little bit about what it is, how you found it and got into this line of work? Because I would just love to hear your story a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So exactly, I mean, you did just a great job of explaining it. Honestly, it's everything that I typically say, which is that the Enneagram is an ancient typing system. And so, yes, it is lumped into like being considered a personality tool. But as you know, it's so much more than just your personality. But when I say ancient, it's a very, very old tool. So it's between 2 to 4,000 years old. It's so old that like we can't actually pinpoint the exact like start date of it. We just know that it was started in the Middle East and then made its way over here to like this side of the world. And it's been adapted by, psychologists, different professionals, religion. Everybody's kind of like adapted it and taken the framework and kind of made it fit into like whatever it is that they're doing. And so the Enneagram word itself is a Greek word where Ennea stands for 9 and gram equals like a symbol, what is written, what is drawn. And so Enneagram together is 9 points on a symbol. And so that's why with the Enneagram, you have a symbol that has 9 different points and lines that mean something and all of that goes into it. But all of that to say, it's why I like to describe it as a system, because as you said, when it comes to it's not just like your type, it's where you go when you're stressed or when you're in growth, as well as it's also used as a tool, right? So it's not something that you just find out the information, you're like, oh, I'm a 2, and you go out into this world and, know that, right? It's not intended to be that way. It's intended to be a tool to better understand yourself, understand other people, have more compassion, like you said, for yourself and your tendencies, as well as to have more empathy and compassion towards other people for doing things a certain way. And so the biggest difference between the Enneagram and other personality systems like Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders or DISC assessment, which have also been around for a long time and also do a great job of explaining, pieces about your personality, but the biggest difference is that the Enneagram is not focused on your behaviors. So it doesn't really care if you're extroverted or introverted or if you shy away from conflict or face it head on. Instead, it focuses on your motivations behind those behaviors. So it's your biggest fear and your biggest desire and why those drive those stereotypical behaviors that might be associated with your type. So take, for example, you could have like a room full of people that shy away from conflict, but the reason why they shy away from conflict is going to be due to their Enneagram type. And so, again, once we understand those things about other people and ourselves, we can explain some of those behaviors that might be driving us a little bit crazy.
Okay, I have so many questions. So I did not realize this was so old.
Oh, yes.
So now
So,
I'm like, I'm fully. I mean, I've always been obsessed with the Enneagram, but
yeah.
now I'm like, stop.
So, and that's why it's confusing to people. When it first came over here to like this side of the world, it was in like the 60s or the 70s.
Okay,
And so it increased in popularity in the 80s because like some of the first books in English were written, but then it died off a little bit. And then
okay.
obviously in the past, decade with the access to information at our fingertips and social media and everything, it's really resurfaced. And so a lot of companies and workplaces are adapting that as the personality framework that they use. We're seeing it a lot in, the coaching sphere and with counseling, like a lot of licensed counselors are bringing it into their practice, and so it's been really cool to kind of see some of those changes.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable. I actually brought it to my team in the corporate
Oh,
world,
great.
and they
Yeah.
were fascinated. And it was a really good way, I think, for us to learn more about each other. But okay,
Mhm.
so now like going back to the ancient perspective of it. So okay, so now I'm super intrigued.
Mhm.
And you can answer either your personal philosophy or like I'm sure it being so old, as you said, that there's been many adaptations and people interpret it differently. But
Right.
how do you think people become their Enneagram? Is it like their soul, or is this exposure to early life environment and experiences? Like, how does it develop?
Yeah, great question. So most Enneagram experts will say that you're born with your type. And so you are who you are. And so you should be able to look back on some of
So
those
cool.
life experiences and see how your type and your motivation showed up in those
Mhm.
experiences versus those things dictating what your type actually is. It's why a lot, I mean, are there siblings that have similar types? Sure. But it's why a lot of times siblings have different types because even though they might have like gone through a family divorce or something like that, the
Hmm.
siblings all reacted differently to that experience versus that experience dictating what their types actually were.
Yeah,
I was really hoping you were
absolutely.
going to say that.
Oh, good. Happy to deliver.
Well, because it points to it kind of points to this higher design and this higher
Mhm,
purpose, right? Obviously, I'm fascinated also by like psychology and how
mhm,
different environments shape us and experience shape us. But I do think it's so cool. Like there's something that happens perhaps before we come here or at the
mhm.
moment that we're brought into this earth that we become who we are, right? And
Yeah,
it's really up to
Mhm.
us with our free will to either be like the highest expression of it or, we also have a choice to be the unhealthy
right.
expression of it,
Yeah,
Mhm.
right?
absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it's all so fascinating.
So one thing that I thought was so interesting is at the point where I took this, like to your point, Jasa, about being the highest or lowest expression of yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I took it once where I was not a healthy version of myself.
Mhm.
And then coming in and taking it now where I'm just at a different point, but still coming back to that same. I even just said to Jasa, and I am kind of struggling between two.
Ooh, I
Um,
love that. Can't wait to hear about it.
Oh, let's talk
Yeah.
about
I
it.
know. Well, we can because that was
Yeah.
one of my questions. If people are like trying to decipher
Yeah.
between two and like,
Mhm.
um, but anyway, I just think it's interesting, and this is why this is so helpful. Is it still aligns?
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that's when I wasn't at my best and I can have grace and empathy for myself at that stage, but look at how much, it's
Yeah.
shifted now that I'm in a better state and,
Mhm.
empathy for others too that are also maybe not in their highest and best spot. But
For sure.
yeah, so for me, I've been struggling between am I a 7 or am I a 9?
Oh, interesting.
I got
So
9
you did.
initially.
So,
Yep.
and here's what I'll say too is tests are a great place to start, but they aren't like the end all be all. And that's because sometimes when we take tests, well, first of all, they're only about 60% accurate. So when
Oh.
we take tests, we're answering based on how we feel in that moment. So, kind of what
Mhm.
you were saying is like, when I was at a great spot, I may have answered this way. When I wasn't, I may have answered this way.
Or like if you're
Also,
PMSing
yeah,
and
totally.
you're like,
I hate the world.
I hate the
Mhm.
world. I'm a
Yeah,
really
I'm an 8 at this moment. Yeah. Or, like, for example, I am a 2, and so 2s go to 8 when they're stressed. And so, like, am I just pissed off?
Yeah,
And then it's
Totally.
actually my stress number that's coming through. I would never mistype as an 8, like, in a million years because I do not like conflict, but just using that as an example. Also, we're human, and so even if we swear we're not doing this, we tend to answer questions on ways we want other people to perceive us. We're like,
mhm,
Mhm.
of course
totally.
I'm giving and helpful. Of course I'm like selfless and outgoing and like social, when in reality we aren't actually those things and we just like aspire to be those things. Um so yeah, there's lots of different reasons why people might what we call like mistype or
Mhm.
like and also a lot of women will just type as an Enneagram 2 in general because again we're taught to be selfless and compassionate and helpful and to put other people before ourselves. And so, when we're answering those questions on a test, we're like, yeah, of course, that's us. So all of that to say, like tests are a great place to start, but it's really up to you to see what resonates with you about those biggest fears and those biggest desires, as well as to look at what stresses you out and your stress reaction. And one thing I always ask people too, which a lot of people have a really difficult time answering this, is how would you describe the best version of yourself? Like, if you were not stressed, if weren't carrying anything heavy, how would you describe the best version of yourself? And sometimes that can help you align to a specific type as well.
Those are really good tips.
Yeah. So you're literally then just reading descriptions.
And people hate this because they're like, I want somebody to tell me what my type is. Like, I don't want to do the work myself.
But this is good because we
Yeah.
need to learn to have agency and to trust
Right.
our
Right.
own intuition. This is a huge shift, even in the spirituality space, when we're like, we want to go to the authoritative figure to tell us exactly everything there is to know about God. It's like, no, like
Hmm.
you have everything within you. Like, trust yourself
Yeah.
to be
So
able to
true.
identify like what you are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, can you, cause like I'm assuming most people, especially our listeners, because they seem to have like a very diverse
Hmm.
set of interests, but maybe just like high level, quickly talk us through each of the numbers because
Yeah.
like I think it would be really cool for listeners that maybe haven't gone through it yet or have, but did
Yeah.
exactly what you said, did the
Yeah.
test, like
Hmm.
me. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like, am I going to hear something now that makes me think I'm not my number? And
Maybe.
maybe just like,
Surprise.
yeah, the healthy versus the unhealthy
Mhm.
version, how that may play out.
Yeah, for sure. So the Enneagram 1 is called the reformer. So their biggest desire is to be seen as a good person, to be moral, ethical, right, to do the right thing, for other people to see that they're like doing the right thing. And then for their biggest fear, it's kind of the opposite of that, like being seen as a bad person or doing the wrong thing or having something be wrong. And so, what their behaviors sometimes look like, then, or I should say, their stereotypical behaviors, is they're very focused on right versus wrong, like fairness and justice and doing the right thing, right? They're very responsible and honest and trustworthy. But when they're unhealthy, they'll go to the unhealthy 4. And that looks like withdrawing into their emotions, becoming moody, depressed, self absorbed. That's their stress line. Now, some other unhealthy qualities of a 1 is that they can be really judgmental and critical of themselves and others. Every Enneagram one that I've talked to has this inner voice that's similar to a tape recorder that's telling them, like, you should be better, you should do this, you should do that. I call it like a case of the shoulds, right? And
Mhm.
so they, you will feel like an Enneagram one is critical towards you, but really they're critical of themselves and they're kind of just deflecting that onto you. The Enneagram 2, so they're the helper. So their biggest desire is to be loved, wanted, needed, and appreciated. Their biggest fear is being unloved, unwanted, not appreciated for the things that they're doing, not being needed for something. And so then, because of that, their behaviors are going to be that they're very helpful and giving and compassionate and really empathetic and just like able to take on other people's emotions, naturally know what other people need. When they're unhealthy, they can be a little bit manipulative with their helping. So, like, helping only to get something in return, even if it's just a thank you. They can also be really just like not communicating what they need, what they want, and assuming that other people know. And so then they get really resentful of that. But when they're stressed, they'll take on the unhealthy side of the eight, like I mentioned before. And so they'll lash out, become sharp with their tone, kind of go from 0 to 100. And there's no better way to say it except to just say that like they'll flip out. And that's because they're like trying to regain that control. They're like, nice, 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 nice. And then, whoa. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
The three, they're called the achiever. So their biggest desire is to be successful, but really they want to be respected and admired and valued because of the things that they're doing. And then their biggest fear tends to be failure. But really, again, it's because they're worried that they won't be valued or they will not be seen as efficient or that they won't be respected if they do fail. So then they're stereotypically associated with like work. They're great at getting the job done. They love to check things off their to do list. And when they're really healthy, they are great cheerleaders. They love to like achieve, but they want other people to achieve alongside of them. So they're just very motivated and driven and have this like desire to succeed. And then when they're unhealthy, they can be a little bit competitive. So they might step on other people's toes to get ahead. They might be so focused on themselves and their own things that they want to accomplish that they ignore other people, just a little bit more like vain and self focused. When they're stressed, they go to the unhealthy side of the nine. And that looks like becoming so overwhelmed with all of the things that they have to do that they don't do anything. And so we call it like the sloth. So they become procrastinators, unmotivated, just kind of like go along to get along and might be binge watching some shows. So the four, the four, they are called the individualist. So they're going to be the ones on the Enneagram that are the most in tune with their emotions and other people's emotions. So they're very heart focused. Their biggest desire is to be seen as unique or special or significant or really just to be understood. And then their biggest fear is that something is inherently wrong with them. So they're defective, they're the black sheep, or they're cut off from other people emotionally. So they are very stereotypically like creative and artistic. And again, just really empathetic because of that connection with their emotions and other people's emotions. They love to like romanticize things and they're really focused on aesthetics and like how an environment feels. But when they're unhealthy, they can become a little like over dramatic and just feel like nobody gets them. Nobody understands them, and so they might, like, hold themselves away and withdraw completely. When they're stressed, though, they'll go to the unhealthy too, and that can look like being, pretty needy and having a hard time identifying what they need, being manipulative, things like that. The 5, they're the investigator. So again, stereotypically, your 5 is going to be the most introverted of all of your types. So these are going to be the quietest. These are also likely the people who are most resistant to learning about the Enneagram. They're probably the ones. And this is often because they are so focused on knowledge, like their biggest desire is to know things. And so they're probably like, this isn't something that I already knew, and why?
What are you trying to pull over
Yeah,
my
Yeah.
eyes right now?
How legit
right.
is this?
Yeah, like they need the research and they need like the background info to understand it. And that's
Okay.
how they are, not just with the Enneagram, that's how they are with like everything. They need the research behind it. So, like I said, their biggest desire is knowledge, but also being seen as like competent and capable because of what they know. And then
Mhm.
their biggest fear tends to be not knowing something or being seen as ignorant, but also they fear like having their personal space or resources depleted. And so, that makes sense if you think about like traditional introversion, right? You're like, oh, they are, removing themselves to protect their energy. And that's similar to 5s. So they're very analytical, they're
Mhm.
logical, they're data focused. Again, they need that research. They spend a lot of time in their minds, just trying to understand you and people around them, etc. When they're unhealthy, they'll just hold themselves away and put up high walls, things like that, and just kind of remove themselves. But when they're stressed, they'll go to the unhealthy 7, which is really scattered, having a hard time focusing, going from, like one thing to the next and not completing it, which we'll get to the 7. He's smiling. We'll get to the 7. But those are some tendencies that a stressed 5 can have. So the 6 is the loyalist. So their biggest desire is to feel safe and secure. So stereotypically, 6s are going to be the ones that are associated with anxiety. But a lot of people will be like, oh, I have anxiety. I must be a 6. And anybody can have anxiety. Again, it's about the motivation behind the anxiety. But for 6s, it's more like worry, worst case scenario thinking, self doubt. So, because of that, then their biggest desire is safety and security. And then their biggest fear tends to be fear itself or being without guidance or safety or security. And so they're called the loyalist. So they're obviously very loyal individuals. They also are highly prepared. And that's because, again, it connects back to that fear of fear, right? So if
Mhm.
they're wanting to prevent, potential bad things from happening, they're going to make sure that they're prepared for whatever comes their way. My husband is a 6, and I always say that, like, this is dramatic, but like I would not survive without him because he prepares for everything that I'm just like, rose colored glasses about.
I was gonna say, is a 6 like the mom who has, like, everything in her purse,
Yes,
like the
all the
just in case, the
band-aids.
Band-Aids, the bug spray,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Advil. Yeah.
Yes.
We
Okay.
just came back from a trip, and, like, when I say I wouldn't survive, like, the things that he thought to pack that I did not think to pack,
Yeah.
it was eye-opening, I will say. So
You're a
but
2.
when
Thank
yeah,
goodness for
thank
those
goodness, yes.
6s. Yeah.
When 6s are unhealthy, though, it's like they'll just spiral, right? So, like, yes, they plan and prepare, but when they're unhealthy, it's like they're only thinking about worst case scenarios. They're only thinking about the negativity or something bad that could happen, or they might
Mhm.
lack confidence because they don't trust themselves, like things like that. When they're stressed, they go to the unhealthy 3. And so they'll feel like they're the only ones that can do something or complete a project. They might also move into like workaholic tendencies, more self focus. So the 7, I know you've been waiting patiently. The 7
No.
is the enthusiast. So, just like the 5 is stereotypically the most introverted type, the 7 is the most extroverted of all of the types. And so their biggest desire is to have fun, but ultimately they are seeking contentment. So some of the behaviors that we see with the 7 is they love new experiences, they love to go on adventures, they're just, always looking at the positive side, glass half full. But is that because they are seeking contentment, right, in what they're doing? Their biggest fear tends to be like boredom, but also being trapped in any sort of emotional pain or negativity or anything that could hold them down, or hold them back in some way. So, like I said, some of those really positive qualities, they're very relationship focused and want everybody to just be having fun and to be happy and wants to like bring that joy and spread that joy to other people. But when they're unhealthy, they can be kind of what I was explaining about the 5 when they're stressed, is they sometimes have a hard time focusing, they're scattered. They are great at generating ideas, but sometimes the follow through can be a little bit challenging. And again, that's just because they're looking for what's next and what's going to bring them that contentment. And then when they're stressed, they'll move to the unhealthy 1. And that can look like being really judgmental, critical of themselves and others, perfectionistic tendencies, like having an inability to move forward until something is absolutely perfect.
What are you thinking, Jace? There's certain aspects though of that I'm
I
like,
was just watching your face the whole time, and I feel like I could like read your mind, and I don't know, like
but wait
I
till we get to 9. Then
no, I
9,
know, I know.
yeah,
So
I
I,
know.
I was just gonna say, like, it just made me laugh because I never really considered you being a 7, but then some aspects, like I don't know, I was watching your face and I could see
Yeah,
like how they were connecting with you. Okay, keep
yeah.
going.
Okay, the 8 is the challenger. So their biggest desire is to protect themselves and other people. This typically looks like people that they feel need to be protected. So like their people or people that they feel like lack of voice. So vulnerable populations, just people that they feel like they need to help stand up for them. Their biggest fear is being seen as weak or powerless or controlled in some way. And so they want to do whatever they can to make sure that people aren't seeing them as weak or vulnerable. Their behaviors, when they're really healthy, they are exceptional leaders, just natural born leaders. Like you can sometimes just feel the energy of an 8. If you know an 8, you probably know what I'm talking about. They're the ones that in the room that like people will look toward to for guidance because they are known to like take charge. They also are just like really compassionate and want to make sure that everybody feels like they have a place. They're very passionate. Sometimes 8s get a bad rap because when they're unhealthy, like they can really be unhealthy. When they're unhealthy, like they can be a little scary to my sensitive 2 heart. Because when they're unhealthy, they can be a little bit like a bully, right? Their assertiveness can instead look like aggressiveness. They might be a bit domineering. So growing up, my sister is an 8 and I'm a 2. And so we're 4 years apart in school. And so, like, for context, when I was in 8th grade, she was a senior in high school. And so, like, that's awkward, anyways. But so we didn't like each other for a long time. And I just thought she was yelling at me for like my entire life. And then I realized when I discovered the Enneagram that that's just how she communicates. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that's the beauty of the Enneagram, right? Is knowing that she's going to communicate in a very direct and straightforward way. And I'm like, why would I ever do that? Because they're going to get their feelings hurt, right? And
Yeah,
so just understanding those things about each other, but they're not going to beat around the bush. Like they're going to tell it to you straight. And because that's what they want to hear in return. When
yeah,
they're stressed, they'll go to the unhealthy 5. So they'll shut everybody out, lock themselves away, pretend that, something's not happening and just put up high walls. So then the nine is the peacemaker. So their biggest desire is to maintain a peaceful environment for themselves and for the people around them. And then their biggest fear tends to be conflict. So they fear conflict the most, but then also being like separated from the people that they love or abandoned or like left alone. So a lot of people also fear conflict, right? It's similar to like what I said before about anxiety. It's not just the nines who fear conflict. It's just that it drives all of their behaviors. But for example, let's take nines and twos. Actually, I'll do sevens since you're deciding between both. Let's do nines and sevens. Both nines and sevens do not like conflict. For
Mhm.
nines, it's because it's disrupting their peace or somebody else's peace. Whereas for sevens, it's because of the negativity associated with conflict. Like it could hold them down, it could ruin the mood, it could,
It kills
kind of
the
like,
vibe.
yeah, kill the vibe.
It's a
Mhm.
vibe killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for nines, they are known for, again, being peacemakers, being mediators. They love to view all perspectives, multiple sides. They are just wanting to understand people and wanting to, just make sure that everybody's happy, everybody's getting along, and like everybody's even keel. When they're unhealthy, kind of what I said before about the three, when they're stressed, nine sometimes have a difficult time getting started. So they might lack motivation when they're unhealthy. They might procrastinate. They might just kind of be like, like numbing out, like being like stuck in their inability or in their ability to move forward. Um, and then when they're stressed, they will go to the negative side of the six. And so they will be highly anxious, thinking about worst case scenarios, experiencing self doubt, things like that.
What do you think, Rach? First
I
of all, that was amazing. That
I
was
know.
so
Thank
helpful, and that
you.
was
It
such a
was so helpful. I know.
clear
Good.
way
I'm
to
glad.
go through the wheel.
And it was funny when you were doing that, I was thinking of different people in
Different
my life
people.
and
Yeah.
like,
Oh my, I was thinking
that's
about zodiac signs. I was
yeah.
like
Yes, I
pulling
know.
characteristics. So what do you think after that?
I still think I'm a 9.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so too.
Because it does come back to peace for me. I don't like the
Mhm.
Yeah.
conflict because I just find it disruptive in my home. Like, I really spend a lot of time trying to make things peaceful and
So,
calm.
and I will say that nines have the hardest time figuring out their type. And that's because they are
That
very,
seems
yeah,
appropriate.
they're very chameleon type, like, so they
Yeah.
can merge with who they need to be in that moment. And so a lot of times, nines can see themselves in all of the other types. And it's really difficult because they numb out, among other reasons. It's really difficult to sit with, like, who am I actually?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I present myself in the way that other people need me to be, and you take
Yes.
on other people's
Yeah. I'm
opinions and
a
other
9.
people's, you know,
Totally 9. I don't
done
know
and
why I even
done,
questioned
done
it.
and done.
I
Done
Yeah.
was
and
laughing
done.
a little bit when you were talking about a 7 because I was like, I don't know. I feel like there's a little ADHD,
Yeah.
in a 7, and both of us have that. I was like, maybe I'm a 7. Well, how do you feel about wings? Because I
Yeah.
know,
So
yeah.
the wings are the number on either side of your main type. And it's just to like kind of round out your type.
Okay.
So you pull the characteristics from your wing. And so a common misconception is that it's like your second highest score.
Mm.
And,
Oh.
people will say like, "Oh, I'm a 9 wing 7." And I'm like, "No, no, you're not."
You can't
But
be.
Oh,
Yeah.
can't
it
be.
cannot be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a common misconception. Also, you probably have seen people say like, "I'm a 9 wing 8, I'm a 2 wing 3, I'm a 1 wing 9," etc. And that's because most people will have a wing that is stronger than the others, but the point is to actually access both of them, and that's how you are your best self, your most well-rounded self. So, for example, I have a 3 wing, and that doesn't mean that my 1 wing doesn't exist. It's just not as like developed as my
Okay.
3 wing. Also, your wings can fluctuate. So some people will say to me, like, I feel like I'm this wing at home and I'm this wing at work,
Mhm.
etc. But your type will stay the same, but your behaviors can change. But the motivation will stay with your main type.
That's really interesting. Rachel, when she was talking about like the highest expression, like the healthiest version of an 8, because like
Yeah.
when you also like when you talk about like the unhealthy part of an 8, like I have been bullied by an 8, 2 8s, by the way. So like
Oh.
that really
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
stuck out to
Wait,
me.
what is your type?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So
A
I
lot of
was like,
times I can figure it out from the facial expressions that people
do
make
you want
when
to
I'm talking
guess?
Oh,
about their
yeah,
type,
guess.
but I couldn't but you were very, like, stoic.
Which is not like me at all. Because like
Yeah.
oftentimes I try to like take a screenshot of my video for like a cover. I
Mhm.
can't because my face is moving nonstop.
I would have
But
said maybe a 3.
okay, so I'm a 3.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. So, ding, ding, ding. So, I was like a hard 3 for
Mhm.
forever, right? And, then my son, went through cancer treatment,
Mm.
and after and this was, like, when I was then in my I was still in the same corporate job, but I recommended it as, like, a team bonding, team building exercise, and I redid it, and I was then a 3-wing 2, or it
Mm.
was even maybe a 2-wing 3, which I was really surprised about because I didn't think it could change, but
Mm.
now, obviously, hearing from you, it sounds like we certainly can. I think the biggest change for
But
me
your
and when you're
main
talking
type
about
won't change, but your
the main
wings
type
can,
one.
yeah.
Yes, your wings can. Okay, that's critical. Because I was thinking a lot about, like, I probably for a long time was maybe, like, mid or had some unhealthy characteristics of the 3,
Mhm.
where when you were describing the healthy 3, I identify with that way more. But I do think some of the aspects of the 2 came into play because it's almost like what motivates my desire
Right.
now has completely shifted.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what a transformational or spiritual experience can bring to you. It's like you can still have that drive, which never went away. Like I have
Mhm.
just this sometimes I'm like, I don't know what's behind me, pushing me, or what I
Mhm.
gotta go, gotta go, gotta do, gotta do. But it's now driven from a place of like true fulfillment and true desire to help
Mhm.
other people. Where before
Mhm.
I really felt like it was 100% motivated by my desire and my seeking worthiness of
Mhm.
like, if I get this thing because of what I did, then I'm worthy of love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I remember listening someplace, I was listening to a podcast where it was like, 3 is kind of the most fucked up Enneagram because like they go through life thinking they're not worthy of love. And I was thinking a lot about that. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, is that what motivates me? And when
Mhm.
I really got quiet and thought about it, it's true. Cause like I knew something was off. I would get the thing, I would accomplish the promotion, I would do all the things that like meet those superficial goals. And I would get there and I was like, meh,
Yeah.
this really isn't doing what I thought it was going to do.
Mhm.
Because, like it was not scratching the itch I really had, which was
Right.
like identifying why I was feeling so unworthy of love.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
was through my son's journey where it really just crumbled that facade. And, I think we either like face our shadows, I think we either like honestly look at the
Mhm.
unhealthy versions of our Enneagrams and really embrace that exercise, or like you will go through something that does it for you. Cause like
Mhm. Right.
either way, like, isn't that the point? Like the point is probably to evolve and get to the
Mhm.
healthiest expression of our naturally inclined abilities and desires and motivations, right?
That's why I explain it as a tool, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a tool that helps you get from point A to point B. Like it's like kind of worthless if you just find out the information and you hear some of those like things about yourself and they don't make you feel great, but like, oh well, you know, that's just who
Right.
I am. And it's why I hate when people are like, well, I'm just an 8 or I'm just a 2. This is just who I am. And I'm like, the awareness, but then you have to do something, right, to
Mhm.
change those
Yes.
behaviors.
Free will, baby. That's
That's
what it's
Yeah.
all
right.
about.
That's
Mhm.
right. I think it's so helpful too as we were going through this trying from a parenting perspective.
Hmm.
Because if we can understand and identify our children's Enneagram, then we can start realizing what their core fear is.
Yeah, the biggest thing about using the Enneagram with kids is to make sure that they are old enough to have the awareness of why they're doing the things that they're doing, right? So, like,
Okay.
I have young kids, so I have a 2 and a 5-year-old. So, like, they are, who
Yeah.
knows what they're doing at any given moment of the day.
It's just a
We're just
crazy
trying our
train.
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, we're just trying our best. So, but, when they enter into the teen years and they're like looking at reading these descriptions and able to have that awareness of like, oh yeah, I do think that way or I do feel that way, then it can be super impactful because you're like, you're just a mom trying to survive and understand your kid. And if you are thinking one thing and realizing that they're thinking a completely, it's like with communication,
Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's such a good point too, because you're right. It all comes down to that core desire or core
Right.
fear that only they can really say for sure
Yeah.
why they're behaving a certain way.
It's
Yeah.
also why we can't assume what other people's types are, which is like terrible for people because they, are like, oh, Susie at work is 100% a three,
Oh, I do that all the
Yeah.
time. Are we
Yeah.
not supposed to do
I
that?
do
Yeah.
too.
I know. It's really hard to not
Yeah.
assume, but what we're seeing again are behaviors and we're not
Yeah.
seeing the
The
motivation
underneath.
unless you're having those
Yes.
conversations.
Yeah.
Do you
That's
fear
a really
fear?
good reminder.
Do you actually
Yeah.
fear failure? Like having those conversations, or are they just, a different type and these are the behaviors that they have?
Yeah. Or like you said, are they stressed or are they,
Yeah.
yeah, all these different factors, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So would you say like, okay, because I'm fascinated about like the evolution
Hmm.
and how different growth and life can help us develop throughout our Enneagram. Would you say in my situation it was more me embracing some of the two components, or was it like becoming a healthier version of a three, or maybe a little bit of both?
I would say it's a little bit of both for
Okay.
sure. Because you can definitely see like the two wing shining through, but then also like a three, when they're really healthy, they're able to understand that their worth is separate from what they achieve.
Uh,
So what you were saying about how like love to do things to like genuinely help other people, that's a combination, right? Of like, okay, we have the helper characteristics that are kind of
yeah.
sprinkling into that, but knowing that you're doing things to help other people and not to like put yourself up on a pedestal is part of that three side.
So nuts. I mean, can I tell you something? Like, there's like definitely like a JASA pre-diagnosis and a JASA. I can like
Sure.
literally
Yeah.
draw a line of the transformation. And I have never, like in my corporate life, I never interviewed for a job without knowing that I was gonna get it.
Mm.
And it wasn't just like, cause like nobody told me like, yeah, you for sure are gonna get it. But I would be like maniacal. I would be like going on a campaign tour and making sure I knew exactly who was interviewing me. And I was gonna make sure they knew all the reason why they should hire me before we even had the interview. It was like this total fear of failure. Like I would, if I
Mhm.
even believed that there was like a strong possibility I would not get a job, I would be like, nah, I'm not interested. And I think to myself, like, how nuts is that? Like, literally, my fear of failure because of
Hmm.
what that could potentially mean, which is like so ego driven. Like, I really believe that threes probably have the biggest opportunity for spiritual growth. It is moving from ego to heart centric. I guess
Mhm.
we all, probably every
Yeah.
number,
Hmm.
but like, it is so driven on like just the superficial aspects of the world. And, um, yeah, I don't know. I just like, so if
Mhm.
you're a three out there, there's hope. I swear there's hope.
Yeah.
There's
So
hope for
one of the
peace.
For all of
questions,
us.
yeah, one of the questions I ask people if they're like trying to decide if they're three is I typically say like, are you able to like try something new, or are you able to like do something new without the guarantee that you're going to be good at it? And most of the time threes will be like, no, because I need that like guarantee that I won't fail.
I don't bowl because I'm terrible at bowling. Like, I refuse.
Oh my God. And who gives a shit about
Yeah.
bowling?
Apparently, me.
No offense to the
Just
bowlers
get,
out
just
there.
get the gut. Just get the, what do they
It's the
call them?
bumpers.
The bumpers. Yeah.
No, seriously, I'm so bad at bowling.
But using the bumpers is probably also another admission of failure.
100%. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not using that. I don't need those.
I'd rather not bowl than
I'm
use
just
the
gonna sit. I
bumpers.
just don't feel like bowling today. Okay.
Excuse me. No, I'm so fascinated by this. What about like dating?
I knew this was the next question.
That's juicy. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, tell us about that.
So people always ask me, this is one of the two biggest questions I get are, what is the connection to astrology? And what about compatibility? Those are
Well, I want you to answer number
probably,
one
yeah.
as well. So just roll right into that one.
Okay, so number one, I have no idea. The answer. The reality is, that obviously any sign can be any type. And so it's how your Enneagram type is going to present itself within the qualities of your astrological sign
Yes.
versus like, a Libra is going to be a 9, which, have shared tendencies like the indecision, like, but a lot of, Libras might not be
True.
9s. So
Yeah.
Yes.
it's just how it's going to present itself. You can say like how the type is going to present itself within the sign as well as how the sign presents itself within their Enneagram type. That makes
Absolutely, and,
sense.
like, the
Yeah.
shadow and
Yeah.
the light,
Yeah.
like, that's sort
Mhm.
of what I was listening to as
Right,
I noticed
right.
a lot, like,
Yeah.
but they weren't exact, right? Like, some of the
Mhm.
shadows
Yeah.
of, say, like, a 1,
Mhm.
I would say, like, the healthiest version of a Virgo would be a 2, but the
Right.
shadow of the 1 sounded
Right.
like the nitpicky Virgo,
Yeah.
that's like,
Mhm.
nothing's ever
Exactly.
good enough.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I kinda
Mhm.
saw it reflected, but it wasn't like high low
Mhm.
for each one.
Yeah.
But it is interesting the themes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there are definitely some themes surrounding, like fire signs versus air signs. And like you can pull out the themes and tie it to specific types. But as far as like any evidence that there is some connection, cannot confirm or deny.
Are you
Okay.
interested in astrology?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now I wanna know, like, do you know your sun, moon, and rising?
Yes. So I am Libra, Aquarius, Cancer.
I'm an Aquarius moon.
Yay.
Yes,
Woo.
and Cancer rising. That makes a lot
Mhm.
of sense. Like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it does, and, it honestly looks a lot like a 2, and so, like, you can definitely see some of the
Oh,
similarities,
yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
okay, so this was like part of my theory, and I kinda
Mhm.
wanna unpack this, is that I think our rising signs could potentially
Oh.
align to our healthy version of our
Mhm.
Enneagram.
Mm.
Wow.
Yes. So we had Deborah Silverman on the podcast.
Yeah.
She's a world renowned astrologer, and she
Mhm.
really has her own methodology of how she looks. She looks at where your Saturn is, which is like
Okay.
the challenge that's going to really awaken you, and what your like purpose is. And then
Mhm.
she said, like, your rising sign, which I don't think we really spend a lot of time like getting to understand. We're so focused on like the sun and the moon.
Yeah, that's
Your
true.
rising sign in her words was really like your ascension, your soul, right? So, like, where your sun is here, it's kind of like your ego,
Mhm.
but it's like who you're going to be transforming into. So,
Yeah.
I was thinking a lot about that. Like, my sun is in a very like forward, like public part of my chart. It's at the very, very tippy top. So, like, my desire to be seen and to be worthy and to be accepted
Wait,
publicly.
what is your sun?
So I'm a Gemini sun, Sag
Okay.
moon, Virgo rising.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
but Virgo, right, is like
Mhm.
selfless service.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like wanting to help and being very motivated to help, but a very different reason than say like my sun sign
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think about your rising Cancer, that
Mhm.
is such a point to two.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's so crazy. Now I feel like I need to do, like, a massive poll with my community
Yes.
to
Like, does
back
your
this
rising
theory.
sign I know.
Yeah.
We got to test this
I know, we
theory.
have to test the
And
theory.
maybe
Yeah.
come back and we do another episode.
I
Like, is
know.
your Enneagram your rising sign?
Rising
I feel
your
like I need to
yes.
text my sister immediately and be like, "What's your rising?"
Yeah. I
You
mean,
should. You
I
can.
you
know.
should. Yeah, you can. Okay, wait. So go back. What were we talking about? Oh, dating.
Dating.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
dating, dating.
Yes.
Dating.
So, you're not gonna like this answer either. So, there's again, no, like, real connection on compatibility because what if you have a type who is, like, really, really unhealthy? Like, no, they're not gonna be compatible with really anybody, and so let's say, for example, I say, like, 5 and 8, they're the best type combination. They're great together, but, like, the 5 is extremely unhealthy, then they're no longer a great,
Mhm.
pairing. And it's similar, right, to astrology. It's like you can look at types that could have the potential to be a really good fit or a really good match, but knowing like the characteristics that make that happen instead of like having the guarantee that like, oh, this is a great pairing together. So instead, what we like to use the Enneagram for when it comes to relationships as a whole is just the understanding, right? Of like, oh, I'm a 5 and they're an 8, and these are the things that are going to go really well for us, and these are the things that like we might struggle with.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is so interesting, Rach. I'm even thinking about you and I and our compatibility. Like, I feel like when you were like, your hard 9 and I was my hard 3, like, we probably wouldn't have meshed as much. And like, I think about you
Right.
adopting some of your like 8 wing capabilities of
Yeah.
really being fearless and not giving a shit whose feathers you ruffle when you're
Yeah.
protecting and advocating for people that are marginalized or like spirituality has condemned when really we should be holding them up, right? And like, I have softened. I have thought about like, okay, wait, my words and actions have consequences. And like, I really am actually motivated by helping people more than I am by my own, check, I'm worthy today,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like, this is so fascinating to learn.
It
Like,
totally is.
So the
Yeah.
9 and the 3, like, they work really well together as well because they can understand a lot about each other because they're connected, right? So,
Mhm.
like, the 3, when they're stressed, you're like, "Oh, I get that because I live there sometimes." And the thing about
I
the
go to a
9.
healthy 3 when
Yeah,
I'm
you go
oh
to
my
a healthy
gosh,
3 when you're at your best, and so you're like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I can get there." And so, it's a really, I mean, that is a good
Isn't that
pairing.
cool?
Yeah, yeah,
this is
Likewise, that's why I
crazy.
know, and
yeah.
Jace, when I'm unhealthy, I go to 6, the paranoid, so I have to tell you a funny story. Like, this is just one example of, like,
Can't wait.
someone tapping into their extreme paranoia, and this is where I'm like, I'm definitely a frickin' 9. So, my husband gets up early to go work out in the mornings, and here in Minnesota, it's very dark in the
Wow,
mornings, right? Okay,
and
so
cold.
we
I'm sorry,
have
cold.
yes, very cold. So we get up, we have coffee together, and then he takes off. And he does this every morning. And I wake up and he leaves one morning and I see a car that drives past and it stops in front of my house. And then it goes along the road and then it stops like on the other side. I can see and stops again and then drives off. And it kind of freaks me out. And I'm like, that was weird. And then the next day, it does it again. And do you know what I do? I call and notify the police department of a suspicious vehicle. And I got a call later
Oh,
that
no.
afternoon
Ma'am.
that was like, "Hi, Mrs. Loney, this is Sheriff Carlson. I just want to let you know we tracked down that suspicious vehicle and it was the newspaper delivery."
Oh
I
my
was
god.
like, just a little paranoia,
Just a
just a
tiny
little
bit.
neighborhood watch. I mean, like, but
That's
I was like,
funny.
oh my God, I'm going to be on Dateline. Like, this is it. He's tracking
But
my
that
house. He knows that Ryan leaves.
you were at a point where like you are not a
That's the
healthy version
point,
of
right?
yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, hello, that is
Yep,
totally what we're talking about.
yep,
Paranoia, worst case scenario.
yep.
This is so interesting. Okay, so 9 and 3 are related because your okay, sorry, I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
Slow to the pickup today.
When
Okay,
you're stressed, you go to the unhealthy 9, and when she's healthy, she goes to
I
the
go to
healthy
you.
3.
and where do I go when I'm healthy?
You go to the 6 when you're healthy,
Oh, I go, oh, okay. Oh, I see.
which
So
is
you
Loyal.
just
being
go,
like which is being very loyal, being team oriented, like that,
yes.
even that, like, wanting to, help people succeed is very much the healthy
Oh,
6. Mhm.
Isn't that cool?
this
I
has to be, I
know.
mean, like,
It's so cool.
can we have you back?
Yeah, I'd love to. There's so much that, like, we could
It'd
talk
be cool to
about.
take one topic and really
Yeah.
get into it.
It would be cool if you did the poll and
Yeah.
then maybe have you back and we kind of talk about like, is your rising sign connected to your Enneagram and
Yeah.
really kind of rounding out more because I think like why the Enneagram is so cool. It really helps you understand your drivers and your motivations. And where astrology can really help layer upon it is like your destiny, your purpose,
Right.
your soul's mission while you're here. So you can
Mhm.
understand both the why and the how, right? And that
Right.
really,
Yeah.
really gives you a full picture of how you develop.
Right.
That would
Oh
Yeah.
my
I'm gonna do it.
gosh.
I mean, I'm definitely doing it.
Oh, it's a huge
Yeah.
fangirl moment. We've been obsessed with you for a very long time. I love
Oh,
how you bring levity to the different signs, how we can all laugh about our
thank
imperfections,
you.
and that you just normalize it, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have so much shame around doing shadow work. Like I, for
Mhm.
one, no surprise, as an unhealthy 3, was like, I'm just going to pretend like I'm perfect all the time and
Yeah.
not look under the covers, right?
Mhm.
And we shouldn't fear that because we all have huge things we got to work on. And when you make light of it and make it more approachable, it just opens the door for people.
Yeah.
So thanks for doing what you do because I think
Yeah,
so many people will benefit
it's important
Thanks for
for
doing what
sure.
you do and,
Yeah.
weaving all of the things together.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
important. Mhm.
Old Gemini and Sats just over here just knitting our little sweaters with multiple things of yarn.
Not knowing where the hell we're going, but
Nope, not knowing what seat
We
we're
don't know
on,
what
but
we're crocheting.
is it a blanket or is it a hat? We don't know.
amazing.
Awesome. Well, you're fantastic.
Thank
We'll
you.
chat soon.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're ready to take your spirituality to the next level, be sure to check out our website, spiritoutspoken.com. There you can download free educational resources, read our latest blog posts, and join the Spirit Outspoken community.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Spirit Outspoken to stay up to date on news, happenings, shenanigans, and all things Spirit Outspoken.